Hello and welcome to the next tutorial on Pygame. Today we're going to talk about some different types of events like mouse events, and we're going to talk about how to get text up on the screen and how to work with text. So to save time, I've already set up the framework for a new class, and I've called it mouse position. I've imported the different modules from Pygame and sys. These lines here set up a window, the basic window. I've got it filled in with white. I have the caption as mouse events, and I update it. Down here in the if name equals main section, I have a new instance of my class, and I've set up the event loop so that if I click on the red X, I can get out of Pygame. Okay, so let's start doing some new things now. Let's set up some fonts first. Okay, so to set up the font, you have to again set up a new variable. I'm going to call it self my font, and that's going to equal pygame.font.sysfont. And you can see when I hit enter, it gives me some parameters already filled in. The name of the font is the name of the font, like Arial or Courier, whatever font you want to use. But remember, if you pick a specific name, that font has to be installed on the machine. So I'm going to use a name like Arial, which is a pretty common font. The size is whatever font size you want it to be. I'm going to pick 24, so it's kind of big. And I don't want it bold or italic, so I can actually get rid of those parameters. So now I've set up a variable that holds my font information. Okay. Now the next thing I want to do is down back here in the if name equals main, I want to set up a new. I want the Pygame to watch for a new event. Right now it's watching for event type equals quit, so it quits. But while it's going through each event, I'm going to say if event dot type equals mouse down or mouse button down, and that says if someone clicks the mouse button, do what's ever under here. And I'm going to create a new function, and remember that my instance of my object is new mouse, so I'm going to say new mouse dot chords, and that's going to call that chords method. But I haven't created the chords method yet, so I've got to go up and do that here. So up in my class definition, I'm going to create a new method and call it chords, and self will be the only parameter. Okay. Now again, the point of this, I'm going to try to get the mouse coordinates, and I want to print them on the screen. So if I click in the upper left-hand corner, it should print 0, 0, or pretty close. And since my window is 400 by 400, if I click in the lower right corner, it should say 400, 400, or something like that. Okay, so let's set up the text. And I'm going to use the variable text. I'm not putting self in front of it because I'm only using text in this method, no other ones. So I'm going to use self my font, and I'm going to use a Pygame method called render. And what render does is it takes a font and makes it into a surface. Remember, all Pygame screens are surfaces, and I can put surfaces on top of surfaces, and we'll see that in a second. So what do I want to render? Well, first I want to make a string, and now I'm going to use another Pygame function called pygame.mouse.getPosition. And what that does is that wherever you click, Pygame remembers those coordinates and returns those two things. And again, it's a tuple of the X and Y position of the mouse. So I should get something comma something when I use this. Okay? And the next thing I'm going to, the next parameter here is a true or false. And what that is do you want your font to be aliased or not, or anti-alias? And if you put true, then it smooths out your font so it looks better on the screen. So we're always going to put true here. And the last parameter we're going to use is the color of the font. And I want to make our font black, but you can make it any color you want. Okay? So again, the first parameter of render is what font you want it to render, whether you want it anti-aliased or not, and then the color. So now I've set up my text. Now I have to find a way to put the text onto the screen. And the way you do that is a method called blit, and we're going to see a lot more about blit when we do animation. All blit does is it takes one surface and puts it onto another. So I'm going to take my screen, and whatever I put in parentheses will be blitted onto that screen. So I'm going to put the text that I've saved up here and add it to the screen. And the only other parameter it takes is the position. And I'm going to put it roughly in the middle of the screen. So if my screen is 400 by 400, I want the coordinates to show up in roughly the middle. Alright? And now, the last I have to, once I've blitted that, I have to update the screen again. Okay. Let's go ahead and save that and run it and see what happens. So there's my window. When I click, it shows me the coordinates. If I click again, it puts the coordinates right on top of the other coordinates, which looks kind of like an ugly mess. So we got to find a way to fix that each time. So let's close this and add a couple more things to our coordinates function. Again, this is something you're going to use a lot in animation, and what we're going to do is we're essentially going to cover up the old coordinates with a blank rectangle and then put the new coordinates on top of that. So what we need to do is, let's create a blank white rectangle. And again, I'm not going to assign it to a variable because I only need it once. So I'm going to just do Pygame draw.rect, and I'm going to put on self.myscreen. And again, you've seen this all this before. I'm going to put the color next. That's going to be white. So I want the same color as the background of my screen, so it covers it up. And then I have to put the position. I want it at 200, 200. So I want it at the same position as the text I'm blitting. And I'm going to make it a relatively big rectangle, 100 by 100. And then the last parameter I want is 0, so it makes a filled-in rectangle. Alright, now I want to have this line before I blit the text, so I want the text to be on top of that. Okay, so let's see what happens now when I save it and run it. So there's my window. Okay, I click once and got it just like before, but now when I click, you can see that I don't have that text stacking on top of each other. And again, the reason is because it puts a white rectangle first, then it puts the text on top of that, and it essentially hides the coordinates before. So now you can see, as I click, this is the x coordinate of the mouse, this is the y coordinate of the mouse. So I can probably get pretty close to the upper left corner, and down here it should be close to 400, 400. Okay, so just to sum up, what we've learned how to do today is put some text on the screen. We've learned how to get the position of the mouse, and have that show up on the screen, and then some real basics of covering one thing up and then putting something on top of it, which, as you'll see, we're going to do a lot when we do animation coming up soon. So thanks for watching, and remember to practice this as much as you can.